Welcome to the Dank Moms podcast. I'm Dewa Dorje, and I am still reviewing and recapping True Detective Night Country, Season 4, Episode 6, the final episode of Season 4. And it's just entitled Number 6. And this is where it all comes. I'm really excited. Anyways, my name is Dewa Dorje. This is the Dank Moms podcast. Thank you. I'm just doing this is the last of the True Detective. Why was I going to call it North Country? Night Country review and recap. I'm probably still going to do TV stuff and movie stuff and reviews and whatnot. But that's it for True Detective Night Country this episode. But I'm so excited. Been so excited to record this podcast and talk about the final episode because it was pretty amazing. I think it's so apropos of the moment right now as far as where we are at culturally, and also kind of where we're at politically and how things are. I don't know, I guess, in how they play out on screen, especially on HBO. And I mean, like, as having a woman led television show, the showrunner, the director. I don't think showrunner is always the director, but in this case, it is the director, Issa Lopez, and the main stars. All the stars are women, and the story is very much a matriarchal story. And I guess I'll start from there. I'm just excited because it was the aunties that saved the day. So here we go. I'm going to. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, I wanted to do this. Applause, 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 like Annie Potts from Pretty in Pink. If you know, you know. Anyways, I think it's interesting right now. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to announcement that I can make because because this pod is a little later than I normally do. That Issa Lopez posted to her Instagram that she just signed a contract to do the next season and direct the next season too. So if you are hating on Issa Lopez, I'm sorry, I'm gonna be loving on Issa Lopez, especially because everybody online, not everybody, there was a large and loud contingent of the True Detective fan base that just could not stand Issa Lopez. Obviously, we know that that was because of sexism and misogyny. They did not give her a chance. So if you don't like her, keep it pushing. But you know, Issa Lopez is another example of what you cannot do to women when the numbers back you up. Like sometimes they'll be like, oh, Ghostbusters 2, we didn't need that, blah, blah, blah. And there's so much hate that actually turned into real violence because some white dudes got their panties in a bunch. And I'm talking specifically about Leslie Jones. But as far as this, people were hating on Issa Lopez. They said that it didn't make sense, that the story should not have tried to tie to the first season and Carcosa, and that I don't think that ever happened. I mean, not that you should go head to head on any arguments with these dummies, but I think the proof is in the pudding because season 4 has higher viewership than even season 1, and the finale for season 4 was higher than any finale in True Detective history, which is why, or part of, why Issa Lopez got renewed for another season. So I'm really excited about that. She can write her ass off. Her background is in horror, and I think this episode and all the episodes, but I love episode number 5, but both 5 and 6, I mean, people may not like it, but when you put it together, we're not talking about old school detective, okay? We're talking about a detective slash horror television miniseries that's made in 2024, where we're going to have references within it'll be referential. There will be Easter eggs. I mean, I don't even know how old Issa Lopez is. I mean, I'm just saying this is just it's going to be a different way of telling a story. And also what I think that Issa Lopez did and her writers did was really show that you can watch this show on a number of different levels, but you can tell that it was written to have the subtext that maybe those who have a deeper understanding of maybe that area, or have a deeper understanding of the complexities in the story that they were showing in True Detective, in Ennis. Like, you could look at it at one hand where it's just some detective story about a mystery. You could look at that and just look at it real one dimensionally. But then when you add these other layers, like they did, like when you're adding in the racial component, when you're adding in the colonization, when you're adding in the environmental justice, when you're adding in religions that were here way before anything that's here now, that is, anything that has been colonized, is that those spirits, that type of stuff, that's been here when the earth was born. Like, this type of thing has been here, and it pays respect to that by referring to that. Like, a lot of times, I don't know how to explain it, but like a lot of times, or most of the time, 100% of the time, in American movies, the understanding that it's that we're in is a Christian paradigm. That's the accepted understanding. Well, what would happen if we put that on its ear and have and live in a world where maybe the Christian paradigm is not the predominant paradigm? Maybe the paradigm is the indigenous paradigm. Maybe it has to do with Sedna. Maybe that it has something to do with the indigenous culture. And I think that's what some of the subtext in this story is asking the viewer to consider, something larger than post-colonial United States, Alaska, Hollywood telling the story. Kind of consider the possibility that there is a deeper story there. But just like Salal was bumped up against that ice, it's the same thing, like Jodie Foster bumping up against the ice, because she does not want to believe that there is a component that is unexplainable. There are things that you cannot explain with the words that we have, which is why I don't know, I know it's in Christianity, and I believe it's in Islam as well, that you cannot hear the voice of God because our ears can't hear it, which I think plays into the fact that a lot of those people that end up seeing God or Sedna, their ears are bleeding. And that was, yeah. So that's what I had to say about that. And I think that the other part was I like the way that it was worked into the storyline, that the woman who was murdered, Annie K, was an indigenous woman. And right now there is more and more awareness in the world, or more, awareness about the movement of the missing and murdered indigenous women's movement in the United States, which is a movement to start getting more coverage, getting more money, and investigating the high number of unsolved missing and murdered indigenous women cases, and how just pretty much they're deprioritized, and when people go up missing, they don't even look for them. And it's kind of like in this case, Annie K, people were like, yeah, we can't really find. They basically shoved it under the rug. What kind of weapon is that? Oh, we don't know. And then they just closed the case. There's probably more to it than that, but that was part of it. I wanted this show to have ghetto boys for some reason, because like my mind's playing tricks on me, because I don't know, I just thought that this whole thing is about their mind playing tricks on them. So I'll start from the beginning. Act 1, Liz and Navarro decide to go to the ice caves in the middle of a blizzard, a Category 5 storm, that they're going to come into ice caves that that possibly could lead them to where Annie K's murder was and some other stuff. So you see them digging a hole. I do feel like the special effects on this part was kind of cheesy. It kind of looked like the Matterhorn at Disneyland for some reason, but whatever. I probably would have licked the walls because those walls looked completely lickable. I don't even know if I'm like in focus or not in focus, but so maybe I'll come a little bit closer. This is the focus. But so yeah, they went into the caves, and I think this is oh yeah, and so my favorite part in this was when they went into the caves and Navarro was hearing a voice. This part actually really scared me, and Jodie Foster was getting annoyed, and then Navarro falls through the ice down to a lower level, and so does no, and then when that happens, Liz is like yelling at her from above and is saying, I'll go find help. But then Liz falls down. And then while they're getting up, trying to dust themselves off, sorry. This one I actually laughed at, and I don't know if they meant it to be funny, but it was like one of those scenes where they have they like pull back and there's somebody else in the room that you didn't know originally. So yeah, Clark, all of a sudden Navarro's got her goddamn flashlight. She's like looking around, and then all of a sudden Clark is in the fucking cave. He's like, "What y'all doing in here?" Anyway, so then Clark what do they say? Gives chase, and then they find it. They chase him down. They oh yeah, he runs away, and then he basically leads them to the laboratory where something was going down. It's probably Salal scientists. One thing led to another. Liz finds the murder weapon, and they realize that it's possibly this is where Annie was murdered. And then hold on, what else do they do? Oh yeah, and then they find the way to behind these carts to find out where the homie went, and they find him. Where did they find? Oh yeah, they go up this big ladder and they find out that they are in the Salal, in the bowels of Salal. So basically, they open up a trap door and they come into that kitchen area where it said "We all dead here," or "We're all dead," or "They all dead," or something like that on the whiteboard. And you see inside there, and so they get Clark. Clark makes chase again. I'm not even going to go into all these details, but Clark makes chase. He gets captured by Liz and Navarro, and they get him to confess to what has gone on by torturing him. They force him to listen to Annie K's murder again and again and again on video. But here's where I'm trying. The people are getting confused here, and I think that's what's so fun about this TV show is that it keeps you on your toes. You don't know, so they get Clark to explain what happened to Annie K, which he does, and he says Annie came to Salal after hours, went down into the lab and destroyed a lot of their research and evidence and to support what they were doing. And then he also says that Salal was actually paying Silver Skies to continue to pollute because it helped the permafrost get softer so that they could extract the DNA or whatever genetic material was necessary to get this huge cancer-fighting medicine. Of course, it's not going to be a cure, because yes, so they get that, and he explains everything, because he got tortured. But while he narrates what happened, this is what he says happened, that he says out with his mouth. So he says that Annie was in there. Annie started messing it up. She got caught by Lund, who comes at her with this drill bit and just starts stabbing her with it. Then, while this is happening, everybody upstairs in the lab starts to hear it, and they're like, blah, blah, blah. And then they come down and help kill her. And then Clark gets down there. He runs and tries to save her, but he can't. At least that's what he thinks. And that's where he ends the story when he's talking to Liz and Navarro. What happens, what the viewer sees, is him continue to murder her. Like he's the one that kills her. And I think that Navarro knows that. Navarro could read his mind at that point. And that's why she said, tell me again you love her, and tell me again about, all that other stuff about what happened to her. She knows he lying. That's the other thing, is like, the unreliable narrator is something that we have to keep in mind while we're watching this show all around. And it's also what I think is interesting as a person who is indigenous. I'm a Tibetan, and my family is indigenous to the Tibetan area that has been colonized by the Chinese. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, with the stories, when you're listening to stories, when people are sharing stories, oral stories over time, they change. Things shift a little bit. So it begs the question, what is true? What's truth? When we're looking at the Western view or the American view of how we're going truth, as in what is the truth as far as justice, like who murdered, who was guilty, who's not guilty, it doesn't always work that way, which is why I think it's really cool the way this played out. If you know something about the indigenous culture that they're referencing, you can see why the murders or the deaths or the killings or the suicides of the Salal men was apropos for the area where they were supposed to be in the TV show, not Iceland. I'm talking about Alaska. So basically, while they are in the Salal lab, and they start torturing Homie, and Navarro's on watch, and then Liz goes and chills, and Navarro tries to listen to the voice again and goes out into the snow. And then she comes back in, and Liz helps her, and she gets all warmed up, and they light a fire. This was one plot hole I did not like, but I don't know, whatever. If it was me, I'm sorry, I'm going into one of them trucks, and I'm going to be starting the heater up in the truck. We will be, there were so many trucks in there. They were saying the power went out. Sorry. I missed that part. So the power went out. There was no heat. Navarro was freezing. So they started to light a fire inside one of the big areas, which seems like it would be fine because it's not an enclosed area and carbon monoxide and whatnot. So then, yada, yada, yada. Fucking Navarro starts talking about Holden, and this whole other shadow side of Liz comes out, and she's like, just shut up. Don't talk to me. Don't tell me nothing about, don't put his mouth on your lips and all that stuff. And that in that moment, I wanted to also go back. It felt to me that Navarro fully was reborn as her new self, because when she was out in the snow, she listened to the voice, and the voice wasn't there to take her to the other side. The voice was there to give her her name. So out when she got in the snow, she did get a name. And also, I think the symbolism of Navarro going through the cave in the very beginning was symbolic of a rebirth, like coming through the canal. And it's used, that imagery is used a lot in cinema. And I think it's there's a number of very famous women directors who use it. One of them that I remember off the top of my head is Jane Campion in the movie The Piano. She uses the I think it's a tent or the mom's dress as a metaphor of being reborn into this new land. And I think that's what Navarro is doing. After she goes through the cave, she is reborn. Her hair comes out. Her hair is loose. She is out. She has her new name after a while, and then she is able to own everything that she started to begin owning since when they went into that damn dredge. Since that happened, she has been different. Because you have to know, we missed 6 days in between Christmas Day and New Year's Eve. That's what's cracking now. This is New Year's Eve. Oh yeah. Then, hold on. well, I don't know. At some point, Liz falls into the water and then Navarro gets her. And what I think is interesting is when the words that Liz uses, sorry, I'm just going to say that Liz falls into the water and Navarro saves her. Liz is able to kind of like pop up to the top. And I think the reason, so when she does that, I think that's why in the scene where Peter has to bury his dad, oh, not bury, but sends his dad out to sea, Rose Aganaw mentions that she is going to puncture his lungs so that he doesn't float to the top. And I think that was said to give some background on why Liz kind of bobbles up to the top of the water. Also, this whole thing about this hole and falling into the hole, and like, because also Hank said that he made a hole for Peter because Peter fell through the ice and then he was grabbing him. I think that's bullshit. I think Hank made it up. I think Hank, the type of person Hank would want his son to think about something like that, think about his dad as a hero. But his dad ain't no hero. And his dad's an asshole. So I feel really good about my prediction because at the very beginning, I knew from the first time I saw the clothes were all folded like that for the corpsicles. I knew that there was some woman or maternal figure involved in the folding. Now, whether or not that folding had to do with the murders or not, I didn't know, but it's a movie about those murders, so I could pretty much assume that it was involved. And so I knew it had something to do with a woman. I had a hunch there was something involved with the women at the crab factory. And this is one thing I thought was really cool too, is when I first started this podcast, 4 episodes ago, I was mentioning the, philosophy, the Chekhov's gun philosophy. And so that's what happened here. If we look at the season as one complete piece, the woman in the crab factory that only was missing those fingers, she came up in the very first act. And those fingers, again, were part of the clue in the very last act as well. So, boom, Chekhov's gun. So, yeah. So, that's how they figured out it was... not figured out. That's how Liz and Navarro figured out who exactly knew that Annie... who murdered Annie. Just like they say in the episode, they say something like, we weren't asking the right question. We asked who killed Annie, but we needed to know who knows who killed Annie K. So, what do we say? Tony Robbins. I'm just looking at some of my notes. Anyways, so it ends up being, I guess I could just go on and say in the last act and then Navarro is messing around with Clark and decides to let him kill himself at some point during the night. But during that time, before he does, we find out later that he voices a full account of what was going on at Salal and what happened to Annie before he kills himself, which I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of funny when the scene where he killed himself, because he's just sitting not that far from the front door. He's not sitting very far from the front door, and he killed himself so close to the house. Like, bro, you didn't even walk out that far. How come you died so close to the front door? But anyway, so he died hella close to the front door. And then secondarily, it was an homage to the movie The Shining, because he was sitting there cold like fucking Jack Nicholson in that movie. I mean, we have never fully... we talk about how creepy The Shining is, but when his ass was frozen like that, you're like, ghost freeze, I guess, because, bro, you were hella cold. I'm sorry. So Clark died outside, but before he did that, he did film a confession on the iPhone, which is what we find out at the end. Navarro it has a reveal at the end, a sweet little reveal, which makes it like buttons it up kind of nicely. And what was I gonna say? Oh my gosh! So in another world, Peter Pryor is over at Liz's house, cleaning up from killing his father. One thing is like I couldn't tell if there was a bullet in the wall that he was looking at or if it was a tooth. Did he? So basically, what happened is Pryor is cleaning up all this blood from Liz's house. Number one, people are saying that there's so much unrealistic stuff on here. And I do believe there is a lot of, obviously it's a TV show. Why would it be realistic? That's the thing that I don't understand. Sometimes I'm like, you do know you're watching something that's made up. But anyways, I mean, the realistic thing is watching Peter Pryor clean up that blood like that. I was just so upset. Who just keeps a man? And the reason why I'm saying a man is because there's this viral meme or on TikTok or whatever, people asking their boyfriends or whatever to clean. And you should see some of these motherfuckers, what they do. They're just like pushing it around. And so Peter looks like he's just pushing his dad's blood this way and that way. I mean, like, didn't Liz have anything like microfiber? Like, does she don't got no more better paper towels than that? But anyways, he was in there just pushing the blood around. How did he get blood on his chest? How did he get blood on his face? Why are you so bloody, man? Anyways, so he was cleaning up the blood, and then Leah came over, catches him, but she doesn't know what he's doing. He just says he's cleaning up on New Year's Eve, and he takes her home where Kayla is, and Kayla comes out because he doesn't want Kayla to be alone on New Year's Eve, and then him and Kayla make up. It was a very quick, buttoned up situation there. Yeah, that was very. Oh yeah, this is what I was gonna say. After I tell the story, I gotta wait till after. I gotta wait till after I tell the story of how they say that the men from Salal may have been killed, or maybe it's just a story, and that's how I'm taking it, and I think that's how it should be. I don't know why people are acting like there's only one true story. This is just a different way of telling stories, and I think that a lot of people aren't used to it. And who I'm referring to is there's this podcast called Oysters and Cuckles and something, and I listened to it, and it's very interesting how different our takes are, especially because they're white men, and their perspective is so vastly different then I think a woman of color would watch this, or even a woman who comes from a culture other than like an indigenous culture, whether that's a North American indigenous or somewhere else, because there is so much subtext in our cultures that they don't understand, and their simple minds can't go that deep. It's got to be this or that. It's got to be A or B. It's so Liz Danvers. It's the takes that they're having on True Detective to me are not insightful. They're not learned. Like they don't. How can you watch a show like this and be a critic of the type of movies they make on HBO and not have a more nuanced understanding or take on a story that is going to be referential to the religion, or for lack of a better word, of the area. Like if you don't got nothing to know about it, that doesn't mean it's bad. It means you are missing something, and maybe you should read or learn a little bit. But what I'm talking about is when Navarro and Liz, they kind of put two and two together, and they go out and they take a Salal white truck to one of the crab ladies, the older women's house, maybe down in one of the villages or down in Ennis, and they find out a story. And that story is that the cleaning ladies caught wind of what the fuck was going on and wanted to atone? Well, get revenge for Annie's death. What happened was they were cleaning there. One of the cleaning ladies dumped her bucket. The bucket was over the secret trap door to the lab. Then they went down there and checked it out. And when they checked it out, they found the weapon and kind of did the math. And so they came back up, told everybody. Everybody was aware. And what we're assuming now, this is what you have to understand. It has been 6 years since these motherfuckers killed Annie. Okay? So the dudes got killed 6 years later. So they may have thought they were in the clear. And then we also have to note, that means Clark was crazy for 6 years working at Salal. So people are saying, well, how does he have time to do this, that, and the other? It's been 6 years. He's been making his love shack into a den for Annie for 6 years. He is crazy. Those things don't have to be connected. He's just this white boy that got sprung off of the freaking curly symbol and put it up everywhere. He didn't even know what it meant. It's like, just like that. That's why I'm saying, like, why is everybody so dick hard about season 1 being so good? There was no solution to the whole Carcosa and all that. There was nothing. It ended up being just this inbred dude making love. Making love is a little generous, but like to his sister, that's how that ended. What? Like, it was okay. I was disappointed there. I was hella disappointed. And this is not biased. This ending is way better. So the women tell a story of how they went to avenge her death. And so all the women came and marched through one day, turned off all the motherfucking power, happened to be at the same time Clark said she's here. It doesn't mean that she wasn't there. I think she was also there, brought up by the vibrations and the energy brought on because for revenge on Annie's life. Then during that time when that happened, Clark goes and takes his chicken ass down into the cave. So Clark doesn't see anything. Clark doesn't know what's up there. He just says what he heard. So he hears Lund trying to pull on the trap door and then something else. The story that the women tell is that they came in there, summoned everybody, but then that would mean that they'd have to be dead quiet. You know what I'm saying? Because some of it doesn't really make sense to me. So that's why I believe the story they're telling is it's also just another story. And that's why it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. So if somebody tries to prove them on it, they'll be like, oh yeah, maybe it doesn't add up. But it doesn't matter because the case is closed regardless. So she goes on to say that they basically opened up the back of a gigantic semi truck, threw them motherfuckers in there, and then shut it. Took them out to the tundra, got them out, took their clothes, folded them up, let them walk out. And then see if Sedna does something with him. Annie K. You know what I'm saying? Or whoever. And as we know, something was done to him. They did get handled. Those men did not freeze just by walking out in the cold. A corpuscle does not occur like that. So that story doesn't really hold water, but pieces of it are true. It's just like a story I hear from my family that we tell about Tibet or something. Obviously, it's going to be based on truth. Is it 100% true? I don't know. But what is, right? That's kind of a colonizer's viewpoint. Like, the way that we teach history and stories in this country is who won. That doesn't mean that's the only story to be told. Anyway, I digress. What I thought was beautiful about this, when I think back on it, is that is a way that justice is served in many Inuit communities. That's what I read. That they, before the pre-Western, like this bullshit judicial system that we have now, many of the cultures that are like in extreme weather, especially extremely cold, the way that they kind of had justice in their tribe or in their people would be like, you'd have consequences, but if you keep on making egregious mistakes, you keep on committing crimes or whatnot, and your ultimate sentence would not be to be murdered or to be executed. It would be to be shunned from the tribe. You actually have to walk away. You ain't living with us no more. You can go find another place. And in a place like Ennis, walking out on your own and not having any people is a death sentence. But they didn't do it. You did that shit. Anyway, so that was Inuit justice. I don't want to call it that because I'm not 100% sure it's Inuit, but I think that's what I read. If I need to change it, I will in the notes. One of the other plot holes I couldn't get, but I think this is where you put Sedna in there, where Sedna and the crab workers were crossing is there's no reason why when the power goes out, the phone has to go out. Why is that still a thing? So when homie, okay, so if the Brazilian dude was filming something when the crab people, the aunties started coming in, the power doesn't go out because you turned off the phone doesn't die, but I think Sedna's surge of something could turn off the phone. So I will say overall this shit's hella good. But the Easter eggs, this is fun. The Easter eggs that I don't know if anybody else noticed these. I always like to notice Easter eggs in this show particularly, but there's other shows that do it as well. Like a lot of Jordan Peele, they do Easter egg. Jordan Peele does a lot of Easter eggs, especially, horror Easter eggs. I think that's what he does. Horror film, horror Easter egg. And I believe Issa was doing that as well. First off is The Shining with Clark dying outside, just like in The Shining. And the way that they zoomed into the Salal sign was very The Shining style. The fall through the ice of both Navarro and Liz is very Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark when they fall into that underground excavation. And first it's Indy, and then it's Homegirl, and then there's the snakes, and you first find out he doesn't like I hate snakes. I think that was it. And people were saying it didn't work and that it felt cheesy. Really? It ain't no cheesier than entire Stranger Things, basically based off of E.T. Am I wrong? Stranger Things is E.T. But nobody over here just being butthurt about it. And it's like totally a ripoff of E.T., totally a ripoff of, what is that thing called? Oh, yeah. Choose Your Own Adventure and that type of thing. So I'm not here with that. That's just some male bullshit and they don't even know what they're talking about. Because they want to discredit her without saying it's because they just don't like women. Just say it. Just say you don't like women. It's okay. Just go ahead and say it. It's not okay, actually. But just go ahead and say it so we could tell. Because you're trying to disguise it as a actual, honest, informed critique. It's giving misogyny to me. The way that people are making it such a big deal, it's reminding me of Star Wars. It's reminding me of Ghostbusters. It's reminding me of the Barbie movie. It's like anything that men can try to take away. They're just going to try to take away women's shine. And you know what? You got everything. Settle down. Everything is for you anyways. Maybe this isn't one thing isn't for you. Anyways, the answers to the questions that I think were outstanding for me were what exactly happened to Liz's husband and daughter. I think that a drunk driver killed her husband and her son. I said daughter and her son. The hubcap was part of that memory. The glass was part of that memory that came up in this episode. and that also that there is a higher, there's like some kind of spiritual higher power being energy in that spot where the Salal men were drilling. We don't know what that is, but it's there. I will say that. And it was separate. It's heavy with spirit. It was separate from what was going on with the murder, which is why I believe they were there. I don't know if that whalebone thing that was in the ceiling had anything to do with it, but it is close to the origin of humankind probably, and so it would have that energy. At least that's what they're trying to say in this. So I think that's why there's such a spiritual component that comes from who I'm going to call Sedna at that place. And then also Liz goes to the spot where under the table where Annie K's tongue was found, and there is like a little like shiny ice crystal snail trail type thing there, and she was about to go further, but then she banged her head because Navarro startled her. And I'm curious about where that would have went, but I just think Issa Lopez was saying there's more than meets the eye even while you're watching this. There's so many more levels to this because some things look like they're connected and don't. And that's why I think that it's interesting when people are saying there's loose ends, especially with the oranges, which I kind of felt like was a little overdone, the oranges specifically. But what I think the point was is when you look for oranges, you will find oranges. And so it's kind of like that motivational speaker Tony Robbins. I think he said like look around, like he does this thing where he's like, okay, take a break minute and then look around your house and look around or wherever you're sitting and look for everything red. Look for everything red and then close your eyes and then tell me what were the blue things in the room. And then you can't because you were focusing on the red. You saw all the red. So what he's saying is what you focus on is what you're going to see. So I think that's what it was also. It's like you're going to hear these connections where maybe they weren't. Maybe homie was just whistling twist and shout. I don't know. But there isn't a linear answer. I think that's what I want to say. There isn't a linear answer to the questions that many viewers have, and they are frustrated with that. But I think that's what's so beautiful about this story is it introduces this aspect that it is not just black and white. And also, women are hella complex, and we should have an ability to share our stories the way Issa Lopez has. And also, the way that this story was so beautifully intertwined with all these different characters that show up at different parts during this series to come at the end to this what I think is a really cool ending to it, I think it takes a talent. It's like it has just as much a surprise as an Ocean's 11, an Ocean's 12, an Ocean's 13, an Ocean's 14. Like it's literally the same thing. It's like a bait and switch. It's an unreliable narrator, whatever. She did it well. It was with brown women, so I'm always down with that. It's with oppressed women. I'm always down with that. And the story, I think these stories are going to be coming out, like more of these stories are going to be coming out more and more, especially now that HBO backed it and it has a monetary backing as well. So that's what I was trying to say earlier. The time that we are in history, which is different and special compared to other times in history as far as feminism or equality goes, is that in the past we'd have something like Issa Lopez. She does this TV show, it's amazing, everybody loves it, but it really doesn't have commercial play. Like, people don't buy tickets, people don't see it, and then it just goes away. That's fine. That has happened so many, not fine. That has happened so many times in the evolution of having more women's voices in TV. But now we're at a time where the market and the audience support what many people have been wanting to do this whole time, is have more women and women of color at the helm. I'm gonna say women of color. I don't know if Issa Lopez. I don't think she is considered a woman of color, but I don't know. But then, but she is Mexican, and she is a woman. But the other thing was that, no, I forgot what I was gonna say. Anyway, so the sharing of the stories telling and where we're at, I think is perfect for this moment. Oh yeah, the other example I was going to give is Lizzo. Like, so that's the thing, is like, people can say nobody likes a fat black woman. Nobody likes a fat black woman if she can sing or if she can't sing. We can't say that anymore. Lizzo makes that money. Lizzo makes that Lizzo money. Nobody's going to make that money. I mean, like, Beyonce, yes, I don't know how they compare, but as far as a new artist, Beyonce is an old artist. As far as a new artist, which I would consider, like, Lizzo probably is a millennial, but she's more of the like Zoomer bracket right now because she's still hot and pop. Like, I think Beyonce is as well. I'm not saying that it's not a Beyonce Lizzo thing. I'm just saying because Beyonce is from, started when she was much younger. But Lizzo, being fat, being black, being a woman, and being audacious is usually is not profitable. But here we go. Here we are. Lizzo is self-made. And so there is a market for it, obviously. And so now we get a little bit more. There has to be a Lizzo so for us to have anything else. So there has to be a Issa Rae, there has to be a Issa Lopez, there has to be a Quinta Brunson in order to have the people that come after as well. And I think, just judging on where things are right now, there should be some really amazing stories out here to be told. And I hope the future True Detectives take this same route, because it ain't just a white guy, It's the True Detective story isn't just a white guy. White guys, we know you guys are detectives. You guys want to be detectives. There's other detectives too. I'd like to hear more about, a story about a public defender or, something like that. And that's a woman, because it's not just men. There's so many women that work in policing, I guess, as well. Or detective something else. I don't know. Fraud investigation or something. But I think that's all I wanted to say to sum it up. I really appreciate people who are downloading and streaming and watching it. I know there's not a lot of people, but thank you so much. I will get back to the regular Dank Moms podcast soon, and I will be hopefully videotaping that or filming that as well. And yeah, I'm going to also be reviewing the movie Pretty Woman and Hustlers, the movie Hustlers. So I will try to start reviewing and talking with other comedians about their favorite films and women in film. My name is Dewa Dorje. This is the Dank Moms podcast. That was my recap of True Detective Night Country. And I'm not done yet. Before I totally stop, one other thing I wanted to say. We know that the story is not true that they told, because they were literally in a popsicle. They were a corpsicle. I think that corpsicle was made at the Crab Shack. I think they were put into the crab freezer, because you know how they can instant freeze the crabs? And I hope the boss went in there too. See, that would have been hella dope if at the end there was an extra and it was the boss that was hella, you ladies, blah, blah, blah. Remember? He was telling her to go back to work because her boyfriend came in, beat her up. They hit him with a bucket. His ass got knocked out. He was going to make her go back to work after she got beat up. Anyways, so, yeah. Going to be reviewing Pretty Woman and, what did I say? Hustlers. Yeah. And if you're in Seattle, come to one of my shows, D's Nuts at the Comedy Bar on Broadway. I'm Dewa. Peace.